Sharing an idea. This topic about sharing an idea, sometimes you wonder, you hope that people realize that if an idea is shared and it's a really beneficial idea, that in return will help people to make a lot of revenue or a lot of money, you think that the person that shared the idea would be compensated by the company or by the people that invested in the idea. But sometimes technically without the idea, if there's no idea to invest into to produce the revenue, then there's no revenue, then there's no money coming in. And so sometimes the person sharing an idea that benefits people or benefits the company or benefits just new investors, you would think people would realize that that person should be compensated. I mean, let's say if the company is already making a lot of money, and making a product, and then the person shares an idea about a similar product but a little bit different, and in return, once they start making that product, let's say they like the idea, they made the product, and they start making lots of money, millions of dollars all of the time, you think they at least compensate the person for the idea shared, because without that idea, that particular product would not be there for them to make money. And in all fairness, when you contribute to something, you usually get paid for it. I mean, contributing anything. I mean, but especially if you're contributing, I mean, within a job, if you contribute something that makes money for the company or for the investor or for the person, usually, you would get paid something for it. I mean, it's so crucial to understand the value of an idea that is shared. Sometimes people could have ideas, but they never share them. They never ever share them, and nobody knows about those ideas, and so nobody can invest in them and make money, and if that person never ever shares the idea and just dies with the idea, then the idea is gone, and the potential, if it's a really good idea, potential of making money or revenue or benefiting people is gone with the person. But if the person decides to share the idea, and the investor or investors or the company likes the idea and makes that product, makes it happen, and in turn it benefits people and it benefits the company, and the company starts making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, the right thing to do in this, it would be to compensate the person that shared the idea with the public or with the people or with just stating it out there for anyone in the forum or, or online or however it is, whoever takes the idea and makes it happen and starts making money, they should compensate the person that shared the idea. In all fairness, if you want God's blessing for the product and for the company itself, because otherwise what becomes is they're stealing an idea and making a lot of money from it and giving the person nothing. And sometimes the person could be even suffering and in need, and they're ignoring the person completely. And it's just wrong before God because it's stealing from a person and not compensating the person anything whatsoever, and in return making money. And it's just, it's just wrong. And then if they try to suppress the person, then it starts returning evil for good. Instead of returning good for good, they're returning evil for good. And when you return evil for good, it's a sinful behavior. I mean, the Word of God condemns that. It's something that's unchristian. It's something that those that believe in God should never be practicing, is returning evil for good. I mean, it's like some kind of witchcraft or some kind of product of the devil behavior when people return evil for good. They take something good from you, they make lots of money from it, and in return, they try to suppress you and destroy you. Well, that's evil, returning evil for good. Instead of blessing you and saying, thank you for the idea, we want to help, want to bless you and help you, and then be blessed by God for it and do the right thing before God, because if people are acting evil, practicing evil, they're going to lose their salvation in eternity. And it's like they're picking the option, there's the option of either being with God forever young, forever happy, or the option forever in eternal torment in hell. And it's like they're picking that option when they just want to return evil for good, and it's like, this is all temporary. This life is temporary. I mean, you can live till 110, 120, whatever the max you can live up to. But then you know, every person is going into eternity to exist forever and ever. And it's like this forever and ever is supposed to be of value. It's supposed to be priceless because it's your life. It's your existence. It's what you're going to feel and experience forever and ever and ever and ever in eternity. That's supposed to be priceless and supposed to have so much value in it. It's not a day or two or an hour or 2 or 3 days for it. It's forever and ever, just always existing and never being free from that circumstance. I mean, if it's a good circumstance if you're with God, forever young, forever happy, then you never want to be free from that circumstance. That's a beautiful circumstance. That's what it's all about. Existing always with the Creator that created the heaven, the earth, and all life, in happiness and bliss, forever young, and it just, you know, and always, you know, at peace, you know, and that's what it's about, you know, and being happy forever and ever. I mean, you know, or if a person picks the other option, being in eternal torment and feeling torment forever and ever and ever and never breaking free from it. And it's like, you know, it's so crucial not to pick that option. But I mean, that's covering from a spiritual perspective, from the Word of God perspective, from a Christian perspective, from the Word of God perspective, from the right and wrong options. Either you do right or you do wrong. If you do wrong, there's a consequence for it. If you do right, there's a good consequence for it. And it's just faith in God and applying God's instruction. And so really, so when David in the Psalms, you know, cries out to God, when, you know, it says, or people cry out to God, as you would say in the Old Testament sometimes, and say, you know, I guess David might have said it once or twice, that they return evil for good, you know, or he might have said it in some of the passages, you know, it's just of the Old Testament. And it was saying to God that how unjust that is. And it just really tells us that it's obviously, common sense tells us that it's wrong. You should not be doing that if you believe in God, if you believe in Jesus. That's that's practice of the devil. If you're returning evil for good, that's something it's like witchcraft, returning evil for good. You know, it's something to avoid in any circumstance as a believer. Because if you live in the teaching of Christ, you would do good, you would return good. And when you look at life and you see if you know, there was an idea shared with people and they invested into it and started making a lot of money, the right thing to do would be to compensate the person for the idea. Because now they have this product that they're going to be making millions and millions of dollars all of the time. You know, why not compensate the person for that idea? What if that idea was never shared with the public or online on the forum or just online, let's say, for example, and it never came to be, never came to exist. Then how can you make money now if you don't have the idea? I think people should put a lot of value on an idea that can be taken and invested into, and as a result produces a lot of revenue for a company or people or investors. They should really put a lot of value on that, because if nobody shared it, they would have not had that revenue coming in. You know, if they never invested nobody would have invested into it and made it happen, and there would be no revenue. But you have this extra revenue for a company that was already there, or for a new company that just started. You have all this revenue coming in because somebody shared an idea. I think any person that shares an idea should be compensated fairly. You know, if you're going to be making millions and millions and millions of dollars as a company, you should compensate the person something fair, not something cheap, you know, but something fair, you know. There's supposed to be a value on that, because if nobody shared it, it would have not been there. And if it would have not been there, this company would have been losing out on all those millions of dollars. And who knows if it was ever shared and when it was shared. I mean, even if you look at it, what if it was shared 50 years later? So for this 50 years, this company could be making millions of dollars every year. They would have never made that money. But it was shared right away, and it was available, and they're making it happen, and they're making money. They should compensate the person for that idea. And when they do that, they're being fair. They're not stealing from the person. So before God, they're not breaking the commandment, thou shalt not steal. Before God, they're being fair, and God will bless the people in the company when they do that, when they're being fair. It's about living according to the Word of God, instruction to the best of one's ability. A commandment, thou shalt not steal, it's a commandment. The same as thou shalt not commit adultery. The same as thou shalt not murder. I mean, the 10 Commandments we have is something that we're supposed to live by and go by. That's what Jesus Christ referred to when he was asked, how do we get saved. He says, the commandments. And he, quoted from the 10 that was in Exodus chapter 20. He quoted some of them, and so he referred to them also when he was asked about salvation. It's something that's part of our relationship with God that we're supposed to follow. And it's just, if you want God's blessing, we want to keep those commandments. If a company is stealing from a person and not compensating the person anything, on every merit it's wrong. Even legally it's wrong. But even just, if you want God to bless, if you want God's blessings, you definitely don't want to steal from a person that believes in God and that is in need and ignore the person, because then, you're not going to get a lot of blessings from God for that. You want to make sure you're being fair. You want to help the person. You want, financially as a result. And then everything's fair and God blesses the product, God blesses the company because they're being fair. They're not cheating. They're not stealing from the person, on every level of it. And so my hope is that people realize the value of an idea that is shared with the multitudes, as you would say. And whoever invests in that idea and starts making a lot of money from it, millions, it could be billions even, you never know. It could be billions of dollars sometimes even, and before the person, because you're making all this money because that person shared an idea with you. And not be against the person. Because if you're against the person, trying to suppress the person, then you're turning evil for good, and that's basically like witchcraft, like some kind of product behavior, contemporary word there, devil product behavior. It's just not Christian in every way. It's not Christ-like. It's not the word. And even Judaism, says that it's wrong and it's to return evil for good. And obviously that's common sense. But just for anybody that, even Judaism verifies that also, just in case Christianity says it's wrong, Judaism says it's wrong, you're supposed to return good for good, not evil for good. If you want God's blessing on it, definitely. And there's some ideas out there. There's definitely wonderful ideas. Here's an idea of using hydrogen to produce electricity. Okay. Hydrogen has no emissions. Hydrogen is clean energy, right? Clean gases. All this, but the clean process that's involved in producing hydrogen and using hydrogen. So in a sense, this is the idea. If you think about it, an example, you can use hydrogen to run the windmills. It's a basic idea, but you can have, a factory, a building full of, and when I say windmills, wind turbines. Because I use the word windmills, but it's wind turbines, sorry. The electricity producing wind turbines. But once in a while, the word comes in as a windmill. But it's kind of similar to a degree, but different. Obviously, it produces electricity. So wind turbines, you can have, average size wind turbines in a big factory building connected to, connected that way, and produce electricity. It's definitely possible to use hydrogen to make them run. If the hydrogen vehicle that already runs on hydrogen has an outlet, right? So if you have like an average size of something, and I don't know how much electricity it can give out through the vehicle. What's the maximum voltage or what's the maximum product they can run? You think most products can run, most average products. You can even plug in a small wind turbine into that outlet, and that motor, the motor that's attached to it, that's attached to it will start pushing it. And so you're using the wind turbine to produce electricity, but at the same time, you're using, hydrogen to make the wind turbine run. So it's one of those things. Even now, if you take that vehicle with an outlet and you get like a small size wind turbine, like a one-story house wind turbine, and then just plug it in, and it's like, they can always calculate. They have to do the calculations and things and to see how much of it, how long will the vehicle, how long will the gas, or how long will the tank full of hydrogen will run, and then how long will the wind turbine will run, but technically that motor, the separate motor that you can plug into it, that can push the wind turbine 24/7 at the full speed, that should produce quite a bit of electricity for the battery, enough to fill up the battery pretty fast if they have a really good battery. the battery that can power up the whole house. I don't know. I'm just using it. Just even like nowadays. I mean, if you get one of those vehicles and you connect to that outlet, you can make it happen. How much more if they can design a factory? They can just design specific motors connected to the wind turbines, for example, or it can be something else. But let's say wind turbines, they can connect them to the wind turbines, and they have this plugs, just a regular plug that the same as the plug is installed in the vehicle. They can just have a wall outlet plug, and they can have this redesign everything where the hydrogen will make, even if they have to put a big motor that runs, separate motor somehow that runs, but it will power all those outlets. This idea is from it. So you can power all these outlets through hydrogen. So instead of having one outlet in a vehicle, you can have many outlets in the factory connected to a big motor that runs off of hydrogen. And you can refill it with hydrogen, and it will always run. And as it runs, it will turn the small motors connected to the wind turbines 24/7. That result will produce a lot of, quite a bit of electricity. And of course, the wind turbines could be a bigger size, but it can be average bigger size, not too big, not too small. And of course, they can even, if they worry about safety, they can enclose them. They can enclose them because they're going to be running off of a motor. So in a sense, they can redesign the wind turbine just like a fan, which is kind of funny way of looking at it. The same as the fan blades are protected by that shield, they can put a shield. They can redesign the wind turbines with a big shield. And if they worry about safety, it's not idea. Attach those shields to each one of them. Redesign them to a way they'll be connected to a motor. The motor will push them 24/7. They'll basically will look like a fan, the design of a fan, but they're massive. They're big size. There's many of them, and they're in a big building that's closed off. So nobody's going to complain about the birds, and technically even the birds are not going to be hurt. Technically, you can even, it's just, people will say, well, maybe they might not look they might not like the look, they might not like the design of a fan, but it's an idea really. Technically, it's they cannot really design it as a fan if it's pushed by the wind, because they need the blades to be exposed to the wind to the full capacity. So for the outside, it's different, but for the inside, but technically, they can even on the outside design it as a fan, but design it with a motor that's connected to something that makes it run and makes the wind turbine spin 24/7 at a fast pace to produce a lot of electricity. So hydrogen it's one of those things that's an idea of using, because it doesn't produce any kind of bad emissions, to use it to make the wind turbine spin, or to come up with something else that can be. But wind turbines is a good example. To connect those motors connected to the wind turbines to a massive motor that runs off of hydrogen, and that way use hydrogen to power the windmills to spin 24/7 and generate the full capacity of electricity in return. So there's an idea that could, people invest in it correctly and redesign everything correctly, or even improve it even more better, there's a potential, because there's no bad emissions, everything is safe, and there's a lot of clean energy coming. This could, over time, could produce a lot of money for the company that starts this. And it's really, sometimes it's just about designing this motor or something similar to it, but just to understand, just to visualize it, to design this motor that will run all the outlets in the factory. And those outlets, you can plug in those motors, the small motors in each wind turbine that's closed off just for safety. If they think there's too many of them in a building without, it's not safe. What if the blade falls off, right? Or something and damages the other one? Well, they can put an enclosure over them and make them look like a fan. They'll just be big fans. It's like a fan we have, just keep us cool in the summer. It has this nice shield over it, right? So this wind turbine concept is you build a massive shield over it, because you don't need the wind. What you need is, you need it to be designed for the wind, but you're using it because you're connecting a small motor that will make the blades turn 24/7, and that small motor is powered by hydrogen, the same hydrogen that's in the vehicles. So from that small outlet in a vehicle, you have an idea of making a massive motor powered by hydrogen to run all the outlets in the factory. And all these outlets will power all these motors that will run. And so, and you would think that probably when it comes to expense, I just want to say, it's just an idea. I mean, it's an idea, but you think you'd probably generate quite a bit of electricity back, right? I mean, the other option would just to plug those motors into regular outlets, and then see. I mean, if you can just make half more than what you're using, you know, I mean, that's a good startup for anybody that's an investor. Just buy a massive building, buy lots of wind turbines. You know, maybe for safety, if they want to put in, you know, building attach enclosures to protect the blades from. You know, yeah, just for safety reasons, they wanted to make it look like fans, basically, in a sense of it, wind turbine fans, but it's a wind turbine, and just plug them in a regular outlet, and those motors that are specifically designed to consume less, but are able to push the blades 24/7 at full speed. I mean, and sometimes even if they just manually start the blades by just start the process and then press the button and that motor kicks in, so then it uses less energy. But the idea is, even if you use half of electricity, but you produce another half, so half of what you have, that's your electricity, that's your electricity you can sell back into the grid, basically, as a company. So, or for the electric company to produce more electricity that way, or both. I mean, this ideas of either even using the regular outlets to power those lower energy consumption motors attached to the average size wind turbines inside of a building that are protected by the like looking like fans, basically. So you're visualizing this big, massive fans with a little motor attached to make the blades turn. Of course, it would be harder to start them manually if we're ready. But I mean, you can start them manually and then attach the protective shield to it, right? So that's not that of a problem. So you have the options. You can use hydrogen. If you use hydrogen, it depends on the expense of the hydrogen, how much that'll cost to subtract it from how much. But at the same time, you're using something different than electricity to generate electricity. And if you're making those wind turbines spin all the time with the low energy consumption motors, maybe when it comes to the consumption of hydrogen, it might not be as much versus how much you'll get back in electricity. And maybe it ends up that you're spending 25% and you're getting 75% back. You know, it just really depends on the design of the consumption of the motor. Even if you connect it to the standard outlet and use regular electricity from the grid itself to power the low consumption motors attached to the wind turbines, so the wind turbines will spin 24/7 and give you more energy back than what you're spending to make a move. I mean, if you can get half or more back, it's a nice way of generating electricity, and it's really. And it's safe, and at the same time, it doesn't bother anybody, and the wildlife is okay, because this is all inside of a big, massive building, and right, anybody else, any wildlife activists out there, don't like the blades are spinning, and the birds are getting hurt sometimes, and it's like, I mean, if something so crucial as energy, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. It's one of those things. But at the same time, and this way, it's more of like, if it's inside of a building, even the birds are okay. So everything's okay in that sense of it. It's safe. There's no pollution. And so hydrogen is an example, when they do the comparisons and the expenses, and if they can get all this energy back from those low energy consumption motors pushing the wind turbine blades 24/7 inside of a building and generate all this electricity that they can sell back into the grid. I mean, that's a way of having more electricity, and any other idea that can, I mean, the idea with hydrogen is that there's no pollution. So that's the best use for hydrogen. But when it comes to vehicles, all electric vehicles is the best option, obviously, because all electric is so much better, because the grid is everywhere, and it's so easy for any gas station to transition to the electric, build electric stations and connect to the grid and make it available for everybody to charge their vehicle. And it shouldn't be as expensive, because it's electricity, and with all the renewable energy ways of producing electricity, it should be reasonable priced, if anything, hopefully. it's supposed to be towards the future, especially. I mean, if it's regulated by also at the same time, because it's something that should be regulated by the government, so not be too expensive. So they'll just come up with crazy prices for no reason. This will just be based on the expenses of just maintaining everything and paying the employees to work, and so it'd be reasonable. And so people would save money that way and have a better life that way. But overall, so this is the idea of to use hydrogen to produce regular electricity within a factory. Or sometimes even use regular electricity, as long as they redesign the motors to low consumption, and as long as they're able to push those wind turbines. And the wind turbine can be maybe even redesigned a little bit. I don't even know. Maybe they can redesign the blades that if the motor spins them, they'll easily spin even better. Like sometimes they're designed for the wind, but sometimes they could be maybe, I don't know, or maybe the design for the wind is perfect. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe they can redesign it slightly a little bit for the motor so that it'll be easier to go up and down, up and down, up and down. So the motor will just use less energy to make it move, but it'll make it move. It'll move all of the time. As long as they're not massive, you kind of look at it as really doable, but they're still spinning and they're producing. I'm sure they can make a massive one if they wanted to, but then the motor has to be bigger, obviously, for the massive one. But so I don't know all the calculations on that part of it, but on the factory, they could be average size within a big building. It could be many of them, and just closed off, and with the shield, just like a fan, basically. So it's one of those things. It's like they'll look kind of like a fan because they have that shield, and it's just to protect, just in case if the blades are always spinning. Just in case if something happens and, something gets loose and it flies off, you don't want it flying off and damaging the other wind turbines. And then what if it's not safe for people sometimes? So if they attach those shields, make them look like fans, basically, it'll be more safer. I mean, if something happens with the blade, it'll just hit the shield. I mean, that's probably the only reason that those shields are kind of necessary in that sense, just for the safety of people working there, if they're looking after everything and just working, and just for the other wind turbines. Like one turbine, if it flies out from one turbine and hits 3 or 4 others, that's an expense. But if it has a shield, they'll just hit the shield and be inside of the first one, so there's less expense. So it's one of those things. But it's an idea. You hope people would make it happen. But if they do make it happen, it'd be nice if they can compensate me for that, right? Sharing an idea. It's one of those things, same with Toyota in the sense of that vehicle, that vehicle that I was mentioning in the poem about a certain vehicle that has this solar panel and this unique battery, and it is this designed in a way that it just, I kind of mentioned it specifically quite a bit in that poem, but designed it in a way, and they kind of like the idea. They made it happen right away, and it's supposed to, it's small enough that it can be powered by a solar panel and that battery together, and it's kind of like, it's really supposed to be like a Civic, I would think, so they never made it happen before, but when I wrote it, like after 2-3 months, right after that, they made it, they redesigned it, and it's going to be available in Europe, right, and all that stuff, and it's like, it'd be nice if they could compensate me for sharing the idea. I mean, it's one of those things, I always look at it that way, but, if you share something and it never was there, and all of a sudden the design comes out 2-3 months after, and it's like you think that, well, it'd be nice if they can compensate you something, give you something out of fairness, just out of fairness, It shouldn't be, I think there's supposed to be value on sharing an idea. It shouldn't be ignored if you're going to end up making lots of money from it. If it's going to be your next Civic and you're going to make millions and millions of dollars, and you came up with the idea because you read somebody's poem that described specifically, kind of specifically described in that poem, the way that the car should be designed for people to save money, and it just, you think that, to be fair and to have God's blessing, compensate the person something on the fairness. And don't just steal it from the person. And, it's just wrong on every level, to do that. But it's one of those things, I hope that everybody if you hear an idea from somebody and you invested it and make it happen, we compensate the person. I think it's fair. I think that's supposed to be value in an idea. Because if nobody talks about it, nobody shares it, boy, what if nobody pays attention to it and it never comes to be? But sometimes it can come to be, and it could produce a lot of revenue, a lot of money, and all because of somebody sharing something. And wouldn't it be the right thing to do for the company that's going to make a lot of money to give some kind of compensation to the person for sharing an idea of a product or something? There shouldn't be. I mean, that applies to anyone, really. I mean, anybody that's sharing something, there's supposed to be value in that. If you share an idea with somebody, you're supposed to be compensated for it. If the company likes the idea and makes it happen and starts making money from it, and it's a lot of money, the person that shared the idea is supposed to have something, but the company is supposed to pay him something for it. Otherwise it's basically stealing something from somebody. And, sometimes the person might not have that ability to invest into it, or might not, obviously not. That's one of the problems, is that, we're not be connected to anybody that can invest into it. But it's a wonderful idea, and it can help a lot of people. And at the same time, it can make a lot of money for people that can invest into it and make it happen. And it's supposed to be, in all fairness, if you get the idea from somebody, compensate that person. Be fair with that person. Otherwise, it's stealing from a person. Stealing from a person and then making money for yourself. And it's just wrong before God. It's a wrong concept. It's like, it's wrong. Breaking the commandment of thou shalt not steal and building your company on that fact, on that reality. I mean, just spiritually, if anything, on top of that is wrong, and morally it's wrong in many ways. I just hope and pray people would do the right thing and compensate, always compensate. Whoever shares an idea and people take it and invest in it and make money from it, compensate the person for it. Be fair with the person, and not be against the person on top of that, and try to suppress the person. It's like, it's better to be fair before God and compensate the person than to, return evil for good and just start practicing evil on top of that, on top of, it's wrong in every way. Sometimes those that try to suppress or try to, in return, instead of helping and blessing, they try to suppress, right? And it's just wrong in every level. I hope and pray people realize it and trust the Word of God instruction, and really put value on people that have ideas. If those ideas come to fruition and as a result produce lots of revenue, they should be compensated. In all fairness, from all perspective. If that idea was taken from somebody, that person should be compensated. Glory be to God, and glory be to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is Mark V. Markov saying, God bless everyone.